welcome. Give everybody a second here to find their seats. Thank you guys very much for spending an hour of your Thursday evening with us. If you're anything like our family, I expect this comes at the expense of some delicious dinner or piano lessons or gymnastics lessons or something. So we appreciate that you're here. This is right in the middle of dinner time for us, church. So real quick, to start off, by show of hands, how many people is this your first year at Veritas? Anybody? First year? All right, we got maybe 5%, 10%. All right, hands down. How many people is this 2 years or longer that you have been part of the Veritas community? Okay, a lot more. And we'll make this a shoulder exercise. How many people have been here for 5 years or longer? Okay, that's huge. So probably 50% or more. A lot of repeat customers. My name is Joseph Bedendorp. I'm the chair of the board. I've got 3 girls in the school. I know I mentioned some of this last year. We've got a first grader, a third grader, and a sixth grader. So we've been here for 6 years now. So we too are repeat customers. Veritas is coming up on 15 years. So the 2024 school year is going to be the 15th year. And we know that there are families that have been here involved in one way or another since the very beginning. So the commitment to the Veritas experience is there. And one of the themes that you're going to hear over the course of the night tonight is the value. So the Veritas value. And you're going to hear from Principal Gerdes, you're going to hear from Mrs. Wellman on what is that Veritas value. And I get to speak on behalf of the board, so I'm going to try and kind of paint the same picture. So Christian education is expensive, for sure. Private education in New England takes a big old bite out of the paycheck. We know that. And there's a reason why all of us are here. There's a reason why all of us are repeat customers. So we kind of want to paint a picture of what that looks like to us. So before I dive into the board piece, I just wanted to share a quick personal story about how we get to see that play out. So last night we were reading from the book of Joshua, chapter 3, where the Israelites are parked on the banks of the Jordan River, and the only thing that stands between them and Jericho is the Jordan River, which I paint as this raging river. And so the kids and I are trying to enact what might that look like if you were there. And so of my 3 kids, we've got 11, we've got 8, we've got a 6-year-old. I can see the different personalities kind of play out. And my 11-year-old is a geographer and a historian and a professional civic, so she's kind of like, well, how deep is the river really? And is it really flowing that fast? How big of a deal is this? It's a frog and where to go. Thank you. And then my middle one is like the challenger. She's like, if you had to cross the Jordan River, she's like, you wouldn't do it. Which I said to laugh about. And then my youngest is 6, and she said, if God asked me to cross the Jordan River, she said, I would do it. And on one hand, I'm like, I had to ask you 8 times to brush your teeth tonight. I don't buy it for a second. But the thought was there. And I was just thinking, the way the personalities play out, you get to see the full range of things in your kids. And that's one of the things that we love about Veritas. They don't take things at face value. They're trying to push on things that seem like they're difficult to wrestle with, and they're not shying away from the difficult questions. And we see that in so many different ways in our own kids. And that's one of the many things that we have come to value here. I assume each of you has your own stories for interactions with teachers, interactions from other families, and what you guys hear from your kids. And we love that. So, from the board perspective, I wanted to take us through the strategic plan and then just a year in review. I get to do that in 10 minutes or less. I think we're down to 4 minutes now. If you can flip to the next slide. I wanted to start with marketing and admissions, since this is re-enrollment. Might seem like the right place to start. So marketing and admissions. Keep in mind that under each of these big buckets, there are 4 goals that are defined in a little bit better detail as to what we mean by marketing and admissions. And then under that are several tactical goals. So we can actually measure what it is that we're doing year after year and saying, here in year 2, are we meeting our goal? Are there adjustments that we need to make? Is this still the right direction? Do we need to be doing something different? So the marketing and admissions goal, what we mean by that is that we want for Veritas to be the first choice for families when they're looking for Christian education. And we want to make sure that our families are engaged, and we want to make sure that we have this sustainable pipeline of students so that we can use our physical capacity and we can really affect the community as much as we possibly can, and then engage parents in key initiatives that we're working on. Slide number 2, the student development piece. This is kind of gets at what I was talking about with the faith and the love and the reason. So we're looking to build this authentic faith in our students. We're looking to get them to wrestle with the complex questions, and we're really looking to build students to be Christians in a complicated world here in New England. So we have several goals that are tied directly to student growth. The third goal is around financial sustainability. I know all of us have talked at length in various forums about where we are headed. And when we talk about things like the endowment or the investment strategy or responsibly taking on debt so that we can fund parts of the Veritas Village concept, teacher compensation, and all of these different pieces of financial stability, all of that fits into this one bucket. And we have several things that help us define our overall financial strategy. And then the last piece is the development and facilities, and again, this touches on where are we headed. So you guys know that we bought this house at 172 Cochituate, so we've got 10 acres of property up the hill in Wayland, and that will be the future site of where Veritas Village will land. So how are we doing that responsibly, and then how are we using the existing space that we have now here at Loker as well as over at Elmwood? So that is a little bit of a blitz through the strategic plan. And since I have so very few opportunities to actually take us through the achievements and to thank everybody who is here to make this possible, I just wanted to spend a minute on the year in review. So we'll put a couple of highlights up here just so you guys can see what that looks like. That is really small. Okay, no, you're good. First and foremost, this is not a surprise, but there is just an all-star staff here at Veritas. So when you ask the kids, like, what is it that you love most about Veritas? Number one is the teachers are just incredible. It is an all-star staff, so we thank you on the board. We thank you for everything that you guys do here. So I'll speak on behalf of me as a dad as well for that. We have a 96% re-enrollment rate, which is best in class. That number is huge. So I think that was worth highlighting for the 23 school year. We've got 215 kids between the two campuses, between the church here and then the preschool. And in the last 15 years, it has been growing 10% year over year since the very beginning, which is pretty incredible. That was worth highlighting. The spiritual development program, so the foundations program and the habitudes program and the Christian identity and sexuality program that's introduced at 7th and 8th. We have some of that stuff was existing, some of that stuff is new. It's an incredible addition to the spiritual development program, absolutely worth highlighting. As you know, if you've been keeping up with the communications, we did run a new head of school campaign last year, so we are set to bring Scott Berthel on in July of 2024. So that was hugely successful. We are enthusiastic about him as a leader as well. The GraceWorks survey, for those of you that are repeat customers, you know that we're in a few years into the GraceWorks survey, and we do pour over those results. And we look at those results and really take that feedback seriously so we figure out, are we going in the right direction? Are there other things that we should be looking at? Are there things that need adjustment? So we appreciate the time that you can spend on that survey. Elmwood, this is the second year that we're running preschool, definitely worth the highlight. For Mrs. Wellman and the development team, you probably saw the announcement that we crossed the $5 million mark for fundraising, and back in December closed the deal on this $870,000 grant from the Herzog Foundation. So huge numbers, thanks largely in part to the contributions that you guys have all made. So thank you for that. We bought the house at 172, so we have this 10 acres of property. We have bond financing lined up for the Veritas Village, and we are now in year 2 of our 5-year strategic plan. So I guess I'm probably over time, so I will invite Mrs. Wellman to come up. But let me summarize by just saying we are very enthusiastic about where it is that God is leading this school and all of the different ways in which He is bringing value to what you guys are doing here. And then last, we're so thankful for each of the roles that you guys play in the story of Veritas. So thank you.
I'm going to see if this microphone works better than your microphone.
Is it cutting in and out?
I think so. Before you go, give me an estimate on how many hours a week you spend on Veritas. Be honest.
If anybody in my company is here, just stop listening. It's easily 10 hours a week.
I don't think that's true. I think it's more than that.
But that's a big number, though. And it's nowhere near the amount of time that you guys spend on it. So
but it's our job.
It is
it's
your
not
job.
your job.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everyone here does understand, like, the work that's gone in, especially these last 18 months, has been unbelievable. So thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, we did have like this year as the year of the meeting.
The year of the meeting.
So for the board retreat, we did count how many meetings did we actually?
Do you remember that last number?
I'm going to save the number. It was really big.
It was crazy. Okay, so I am up here, and this year, for the first time ever, I am not here speaking to you as a principal or a head of school or an executive director or a development person. I am just a mom. And so forget everything else that you know about me, and I just want to share some things from my mom's perspective. Every year we have parents who speaks, and this year I was like, I really want it to be me. And the reason for that is some pretty significant things happened in our life in the last few weeks that really pulled together why this is also important. And so we're going to be talking about delayed gratification. We're going to talk about an internal perspective. And raise your hand if you've ever heard of the marshmallow study. One of the most famous studies, social studies for behavior. Are you going to pick up that marshmallow, or are you going to wait 5 minutes and get 2 marshmallows? And so we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But let's go to the next slide. So this is why I have to talk to you today. So this is my son Sawyer, right smack in the middle, and he got married about 10 days ago. And actually, I guess that's 2 weeks ago now. And it was absolutely the most spirit-filled, emotional, and fulfilling thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I was absolutely overcome with emotion as I sat there and watched him at the front and watched his groomsmen, most of whom he's known since they were 2, 3, 4 years old. They were at Westgate together, at Veritas together, and they're all standing beside him. It was a weekend, a full weekend, not about celebrating Sawyer or Hannah. It was so secondary. This weekend was filled with a completely humbling awareness of God's faithfulness, how good He is, how He turns our messes into something beautiful if we will let Him, how even though we don't deserve it, He pours blessings upon us. And to see this young man and his life and all the things that he's done wrong and all the messes that he's made, and to see God do something so beautiful, and to see all of his friends from the time he was tiny standing beside him, it was pretty amazing. When we walked in, and we were ready to walk down, we couldn't find the groomsmen anywhere, and we went around looking, where are they? And I opened the door, and they were all bowed in prayer, praying blessings, sincere, heartfelt, and they wouldn't stop. And we were like, the wedding has to start. Pulled them all out there. It was amazing. So let me just hit the next slide. So these guys right here they are in April 2006. They were 5 years old. Then that's at Westgate. That's when they first all knew each other. Then September 2010, when Veritas started, we all came over here and kept them. And it's really, for me, God used my fear of what might happen to my son if we did not do this to help create the school, because I knew he needed to be with boys like this. And then there they are up there at the top at his wedding. And again, I just, it felt like God just put His hand upon me and said, stop. Take this in. Full circle. This is why you've been doing this for all these years. This is why. And it's really for the eternal good, but man, 15 years later, to see the immediate good that has been transformation of his life is pretty impactful. So before I just say, oh look, it's all been great and wonderful and fun, let me go to the next slide and tell you that it isn't always been great and wonderful and fun. And so this was the day he came from the hospital. He was 2 days old, and this is my husband Andrew, and they're having a real heart to heart. And Andrew's talking about all his hopes and dreams and what it's going to be like, father and son, and all this amazing world that we live in, and how great he's going to be, and just such an exciting time. You know how we had parenting classes, and we had done all kinds of wonderful things. We were going to rock this thing. It was going to be incredible. Let's go to the next slide. We spent a lot of time like this. And I don't mean like days, I mean like years. And this is the happiest child you've ever met until you tell him no. And this is what happens all the time. So I say he should have been born with "Dare Me" tattooed right here. He is naturally a defiant human being. Can't wait to have some kind of conflict and just really charge people up. And so it made for a really fun parenting experience those first few years. I thought I parented 3 times harder to have a child that would behave half as well as anyone else's. So we went to public school. It was a disaster. We did kindergarten there. And then I found Westgate. And we can go to the next slide. We found this group of kids, and immediately my child was a different person, surrounded by the right kinds of people. They brought out the best in him. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So I just want you to know, people will say sometimes, gosh, Veritas is so different. It's a different school than it was 15 years ago. And I'm like, no, they were playing Imago and soccer, and they were building gingerbread houses, and they were musicals and playing tri-town basketball and field day, and they were competing in the Math Olympics, and they were traveling to Acadia in New York. All the same things. And guess what? They had too much homework, and they were losing everything all the time, and they were having fights and arguments, and there were jealousies, and there were pettiness, and they were coming home injured, and all the things that happen all the time here, those same things happen then too. And I just want to say what I am so grateful for. We can go to the next slide. This is one of my favorite pictures in the world. So here they are, and when I think about what makes a human resilient, it's this right here. It's knowing that when you get thrown up in the air, you're going to be caught. It's depending on the people around you to have your back, and depending on them to say, don't do that. That might be smart. And it's funny because there's a group of pictures in a row, and you can see that Roy Sable's one. He's looking very concerned the whole time. He's just not real sure about this whole thing. And others are like, let's go higher. So anyway, I just want to say, it is worth it, what you're doing. And there are moments where parenting is really, really, really hard. And there are moments where being a teacher is really, really exhausting and frustrating. But what we're doing is we are walking alongside these eternal souls. And we have a chance to plant seeds that are going to develop into something beautiful. And you may not see it day after day after day, and you may not see it month after month, but I promise you, give it time, and it will take your breath away. It will. And so do not give up. Do not get distracted by the busyness of the day. Do not get distracted by piano lessons and all these other things. Invest in doing it the right way. Let's go to the next slide. So this is, to me, I just want to take a moment and to say thank you to our teachers. And when I look at my own children's lives, and I think about how they love math and how fast I look at Mrs. Gertie's and all the time that she spent challenging and really getting my kids to see, wow, I see how God works in these numbers. Like, this makes sense to me. Mrs. Reed, the fingerprints of God in creation. I look at Miss Fisher and how she taught them to love Jesus with their whole hearts. And Mrs. Snowing who taught them to love other people and to have a voice. And there's so many of you that have poured into my child. And we had that rehearsal dinner the night before. We hardly even mentioned Hannah and Sawyer's name, because the whole evening was about thanking every one of those people who had come alongside and who had been there to say, hey, I forgive you for that. I'm sorry for that. You're better than that. Let's do this together. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm going to love you when you're unlovable. I'm going to stand beside you. And teachers give that example. Peers give that example. And when you have been raised in an environment, in a home, in a school, where you know that your honesty, your integrity is going to be valued more than you're ever going to make someone upset by a mistake that you made, when you know that they're not going to give up on you, that's what makes that picture when he's being thrown in the air and full of joy and full of peace. There's nothing in him worried at all, because he knows he's going to be caught. And that's what this is, this environment. And so I thank you, teachers, for pouring into them. And for parents, just that reminder that every sand, it is a long, long, long journey. And there were so many times that I thought I was going to die. And I want to say to you, they're going to get through it. Middle school is hard, and there are moments in high relationships. And you can go through, and it's all the groomsmen gave their speeches. Almost all of them mentioned a time where they hated Sawyer. They just could not stand him anymore. And sometimes it lasted an hour, and sometimes it lasted 6 months. But Sawyer pursued and pursued and pursued. Forgive me, I'm sorry, you know. And those friends were able to say, okay, you're really a pain. You really are, but you're fun, and you're pretty great. And he loves intensely. So I just think a lot of times with these kids, we tend to give up on the ones that are really, really hard and say you're not worth it. Don't ever do that, because there is something pretty fantastic God is calling you to do. Do I have any more slides, or am I? I think that's, oh yes. This is to say, every one of our kids is going to have a different story. And even Sawyer, Dan, and Austin, it's so different. For him, he does not respond to grades, he does not respond to achievements, he responds to people. And God put people in his life to make him greater. All kinds of mentors, teachers, friends. For my daughter, it was, teachers who believed in her. She was dyslexic, and they, you're smart, you can do this. And watching what she has become and how much she loves it, your child is going to be different. They're all different. We talked about that last year. You all have different trees. You might have wanted a plum tree and you get a pear tree. You might have wanted a Bradford or an oak and you got a bonsai. Who knows what you got a cherry tree. We can't pick or choose the trees that we get, but we can cultivate them and nurture them. And they are all beautiful when you do that. And so I just would say to you, we are pouring in. This is a place where you can trust. You can trust that we are partners. This next slide is something I want you to just kind of think through yourself. And we should probably send this out later to think through, but do you have an eternal perspective as you parent? Even if you say, I don't even believe in the eternal stuff, do you have a long-term perspective? Do you think about what they're going to be like as adults? It's not the material they're learning, it's who they're becoming. Are you fully committed to this partnership? I'm telling you, these teachers love your kids. Are they perfect? No. Are they going to mess up? Yes. But know that when they have hard conversations with you, it's not because they just want to have hard conversations. They're trying to get the best out of your child. They're trying to partner with you and do this really, really well. And so invest in that. Know that it makes a difference, and know that you're working with them. It's going to just be huge. Do you recognize Veritas as a cherished community? When there is conflict, and let me tell you, there is going to be conflict. Sometimes it's little, sometimes it's big. Work with your kids to say, hey, wait a minute. Could you have done anything to make that better? Or you know what? Sometimes people just have a bad day. Let's forgive them. But if you will begin at the earliest age to teach them how to work through things, because you know what? We love this community. And when there's fighting, we're going to work this out. And again, it may take a little bit of time, it may take a lot of time, but don't ever give up on the people in this community, because they will be your lifetime friends. They really will. And then lastly, just keep reminding yourself what is most important. And when you do that, you're going to have that eternal perspective, you're going to have that long term, and you're going to end up with a product at the end that, man, it is bringing you so much joy.
It's seeing our kids grow up is a culmination of a dream, because we started Veritas because we wanted a school for our children. And I'm here to just talk about the Veritas value. And it's really important to know that at the very beginning, you have to know, people are saying, so you're just doing this till your kids graduate? Are you in this for the long haul? Why are you doing this? And we were doing this because we knew early on the value of an authentic faith, and that we wanted that for our kids, and strong academics. And academics not for its own sake, but intellectual strength to engage in this world, to operate well in this world, to make a difference. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that, not only that happens, but how that will continue even when we're gone, and why. One of the great things is the survey that Joseph Metador mentioned. And one of the things I love is seeing over and over a reflection of what we're pouring in. And that's encouraging. A lot of testimonials all said what is most valued is their children having a real faith and excellent academics. That's sort of that twin magic that Veritas has. Because so many schools are strong in one or the other. Very few actually do both well. And personally, what means to me the most is statements like this: the school delivers what their slogan says, pursue excellence in faith, love, and reason, because I believe in being genuine. and really delivering on the promises. So thank you. I mean, those testimonials, we use them everywhere. They mean the world. But make sure that you're saying what you really need to. So where is the Veritas value? And often I'm up here talking about academics, and I'm switching gears because truthfully academics is part of this. Our real secret sauce, shall we say, is our core values. And we probably haven't talked enough with parents about this, but we talk an awful lot with our staff and our students about it. We didn't know what our culture was until about 8 years in. And we were on the hamster wheel, still are, actually, going as fast as we could. And finally sat down and said, what defines Veritas? What makes us unique? What is our vision and mission? What is what we most value and most want our children, our staff, everyone in this organization to have? And those were truth seeker, resilient souls, unconditional love, teachable hearts, and high expectations. We've made cute videos out of this with the kids and showing what the kids have absorbed, but truthfully, these were first applied to our staff and who are we hiring. And these are the criteria that we want in our community. The neat thing about core values is core values transcend people. When we're gone, the core values of Veritas, the culture continues as long as it's embedded in the fabric of the school. How do we embed that fabric? We teach them all the time. We've done 4 chapels for every core value so far this year. And that doesn't count the many times we did it last year and the year before. We have it all over our walls, in our classrooms. We talk about it with our kids during devotions. We talk about it in class. We talk it while we're disciplining. We hire for these core values. Sadly, we don't want to do this interviewing to fill Mr. Corey Jordan's position. By the way, we just love him, and we're going to give him a good send-off. But when we have those interviews, those core values are foremost. This is what we're looking for. We evaluate by these core values. Every single person on our staff has a rubric that is saying, how are we doing as truth seekers? How are we doing? Do we have teachable hearts? Are we learning more? Are we dedicated to learning more? Are we living up to high expectations? What are we as a staff doing? And this is also board down. We cannot say enough things about our board. They are humble and they take these core values seriously themselves. Every single one of us is being evaluated and permeated by these core values. And we define constantly, what does it mean? And we'll talk a little bit about what it means in the lives of the kids. Cindy and I, the more we look at these, the deeper they are because they're scripturally based. They're based on what the Lord wants for us. And that is what is going to help our children become the kind of children that Cindy described. So I'm going to start out of order. For those who don't like them going out of order, sorry. I'm starting out of order because we have to start with our Lord. And we have to start with unconditional love. We notice very quickly that when a child feels known and loved, they are able to listen to you. If a child does not feel known and loved, you can't do very much. And so the first thing we do as a teacher is make sure they feel safe, emotionally, physically, socially. They know that they are loved by the Lord, that they can fail, and they're fine. And I love, and I'm not going to read every quote because we'll be here all night, but I really like this one. People really understand you here, and you can tell anyone how you feel, and they won't judge you. That is awesome. Now, for sure we fail, and these core values are our goals, right? Which means that we're working towards them. You know, not that yet that we've attained it, but we're pursuing them. But when you set a goal, and you have to set a high goal, you're going to get closer than if you didn't do it. It's so important that we start with love. And our students, we talk about this all the time. Are you knowing and loving each other? Are you forgiving each other? And we have to model it as teachers. How dare we ask our students to do things we don't do ourselves? If we want our students to forgive each other, we need to forgive them, we need to forgive our staff. What Cindy mentioned about Sawyer. Sawyer was a lot of fun to have in class, but you have to forgive Sawyer a lot. Sawyer was the one who tipped his chair so far back he fell over all the time, right? Who showed up in class with a big sigh of contentment. And I was like, right, take out your books. He was like, oh, yeah, okay. Can I look up with you? You got your pencils? Oh, yeah. So he'd steal Josh's pencil. I mean, these are real kids, right? But we're working with the kids we have, and look how beautiful they become. So unconditional love is our starting point. And if you have unconditional love, students can start to grow a teachable heart, and they can actually listen to you. And then we can grow in them the importance of a teachable heart. We as staff have to model that. We hire for that. I recently talked to my daughter who works on Wall Street. Do you know what the first thing that they look for in a new hire? Someone who's coachable. We as staff need to be coachable. We need to hire people who are coachable. And we need to build students who are coachable. And we do that by modeling it, by taking stock of ourselves. Are we listening? Are we willing to listen to other perspectives? Are we willing to dig and learn? One of the great things, I added perfect love casts out fear, because being teachable is sometimes scary, because you have to do things differently than you have. But when you have unconditional love at your foundation, you know the Lord loves you and forgives you, and your teacher loves you, you can let that fear go and you can take some chances. The other thing that takes courage is being a truth seeker. We mean this in so many ways. Academically, we need to seek the truth because essentially that's what we're doing. We're learning. First, we're learning some basic things like reading and writing and math and how to do it right. But we're using then those tools to reason through some hard things. And you know what we're always tempted by? Often we know what conclusion we want to get to, right? We want to think a certain thing. And isn't it tempting to then choose the facts you want to justify what you want to think? But a truth seeker leaves that behind. And a truth seeker has a lot of clout when they get older, because when they meet with other people, they ask a lot of questions. They're trying to discern what the truth is. Relationally, they grow strong. A truth seeker is somebody who you can rely on. They do what they say what they do. A truth seeker is someone who tells the truth when it's hard. A truth seeker does not embellish, does not exaggerate to make themselves look better, right? We call it spin, right? But a truth seeker really tells the truth. I can tell you of one instance that this happened, and it required the whole school to be a truth seeker, honestly, because we had some students who cheated on the same assignment, 4 or 5 of them that came into the office, and they started talking about why they cheated on that assignment, and it was partially they had too much homework. And I had to say, I am sorry, because I, by not monitoring, and we as teachers contributed to that, and that is on us, and we're trying to do a better job of that. We put you in that position. We need to own that, because you don't want to put kids in that position. But I'm also saying to the kids, but you're going to get in that situation again yourself, where you're crunched, and you have too much. And when you do, you can't take a shortcut. So what are you going to do different? We brainstorm things. Truth seeking is really important, and we talk about it all the time. High expectations. I feel like I talk about that almost too much, but really, truly, high expectations is being your best self. And we really talk about that for the kids. They need to hold themselves to high expectations. High expectations is not grades. That is really important. High expectations is not an A. High expectations is building good habits. Because an A is nothing. It is nothing. But good habits are gold. You have those for life. And so it's really important when you talk with your kids about having high expectations that you're thinking about their character, that you're thinking about those daily habits, not the grades. The grades can be manipulated. You can boost a grade by making homework worth more, right? And you can make things appear that as if they're not. real thing. Those habits are built in children, and we work really hard on teaching them the basics of hard work, the basics of accountability. I am just going to offer some numbers just because they are telling a little bit of our authenticity. But our kids averaged last year 93rd percentile in both English language arts and in math on our standardized test. That's across the whole school and across all grades. The whole battery of tests, if you include everything, I put the core composite there, but if you include everything, it's 91st percentile. And that's all students, even the struggling students. And so I want you to know that we put our money where our mouth is, right? We are working really hard. These teachers really go all out every day, and we try to meet high expectations so your kids can. The numbers tell a certain story, but I care so much more about a student who is learning something for the first time and who I see do a habit that was hard for them a few years ago. That is where your real value is. And I left my favorite for last. This is the award that I most treasure giving to students at Veritas. Of all awards, Resilient Soul. And I have to put a little plug in for our new head of school, Scott Berthel. When we were interviewing Scott, one of the first things he said is, when I was looking at different schools, and I read everything, and this man reads everything, really, there was something authentic about Veritas. And he said, one of the things that I loved most, and he cited several, but among your core value, the fact that you identified resilience as a core value just shows so much wisdom, because there's nothing more important for a child than resilience. I included this little quote, "Do not judge me by my success, judge me by how many times I fell down and got up again," by Nelson Mandela. We talk a lot about failure not being final. I love to talk about failure as a stepping stone. And again, if you start with unconditional love, if you start with Jesus, who cares if you fall? You've learned something from falling. And that's now a stepping stone to the next step. It's okay to fail. Please tell your kids it's okay to fail. We have to talk about the money part, and just so that I know where it started. It is hard for us to raise tuition. We recognize how expensive it is to live here. We grew up paying tuition ourselves. We know it's expensive. We only raise what we need to raise. And as I'll show in the next slide, don't do it yet though, is so much of it goes to our teachers. The largest percentage by far is so that our teachers can afford to live and work here. But again, from our survey, it was just a real gift for you to tell us that you felt that the value of the Veritas tuition dollars were so high that we are in the 93rd percentile as a school in the country. That is amazing. Thank you for telling us that it's a good value, because we strive so hard to be financially responsible. We really agonize over every day. I don't know if Anina's here tonight, but I tell you, she's investing every cent she can. She's saving every cent we can, and that's and everyone has that perspective. We are very careful in what we spend. The biggest Veritas value is our teachers. And everyone alludes to it. It's just the truth. Who's with your children all day? I heard a head of school last week said, I think he measured that as a school, we're with your children 1,100 hours a year. We're sometimes with your children more than you are, if you really think about the actual hours. That is incredible responsibility, and it's your child's teacher who's with them. And this is a hard area for them to live in, and we have set a goal to try to get them to at least 75% of public school salaries, and that's not even including benefits. So we're working in that direction, but know that we are carefully spending tuition dollars, and I wanted you to see that pie chart. The big blue piece is what we spend on staff. So that's where your tuition dollars go. It's almost all to your teachers. You can see the new tuition numbers above there, and they'll be sent also in a packet tomorrow. But because we're ending on our teachers, we decided to take a few minutes to have a panel of teachers come up join me up here so that we can ask them what they think is the Veritas value and how do they see Veritas. So, Mr. Greg Dancer, Mrs. Lillian Fisher, Mr. Matt Milton, and Mrs. Noelle Pierce. Can you come on up? So why don't you...
Okay, this one I gotta stand. Right? Put yourself in the shoes of sixth graders. We're all gonna be sixth graders for a moment, okay? Picture this. I'm gonna come down with you, all right? We are sitting on the shores of a small lagoon in northeast United States. And that lagoon is surrounded by some really fine sand. And we're there on a partially sunny day, a very light breeze. And we're looking out over this water, and we can see the Atlantic a little bit, just over a couple of dunes, a few hundred yards away. And there's a park ranger who said it best. This is why Acadia National Park is my favorite thing to do with Veritas. She said it, I didn't. She is not a Christian, and she even said that too. She said, Acadia is a place where you can't deny two things. One of which is, it's a place where the science of understanding how the Earth works as a planet, as a weather system, as many different things, is visibly evident all over that peninsula of Scudic, where we are. And she said she also can't help but realize or acknowledge, as you sit there, listening to that light breeze, looking at that fine sand, and just hearing the lap of the water, there is a higher. You contemplate this. Acadia is beautiful because we can't help but acknowledge the knowledge systems that we bring in science and the spiritual beliefs that we know are true. God is great, and Acadia is one of the things that we know. He's great.
Okay, I can't beat that, sorry. Okay, the admin's gonna be surprised, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Probably my favorite thing is farm school. And no, do not like sleeping in bunkhouses. Do I miss my cushy mattress? You bet I do. Do I like being worried about 30 kids? Nope. But the kids love it. It's not so cool as Acadia, but they get so excited about picking up eggs and milking cows. And Mrs. Fisher, did you see that? So I love it because they love it. They really draw close to one another, and that's really sweet to watch. They have to do chores that are not gratuitous. They're like real chores that the farm wouldn't survive without their work. And it's a really sweet bonding time for me. I do love it.
I've been thinking about my answer to this question. Originally, I laid it on field day because there's so much energy and it's exciting, but I'm changing my answer because if you know anything about me, I love the idea of slowing down and enjoying the mundane parts of life and falling in love with the everyday rhythms that we go through. And so my favorite tradition is something that our students do every day, but most middle schools don't, which is recess. The fact that we stop in the middle of the day intentionally, and assuming it's above 20 degrees, we go outside and he's outside. And so we go out and we enjoy the fresh air, and you get to see students who really are, and you get to see how talented they are. We have some amazing soccer and football players, like I am not that talented. And so it's awesome to see them engage with each other and engage with nature and engage with sports and be themselves for just half an hour and take a break and enjoy the day for what it is in that moment.
You stole mine. Farm school actually is totally amazing. I got to chaperone it once, and I wrote, this was like my response was going to be about farm school, but then I changed my mind and I went to the graduation ceremonies. Our award ceremonies at the end of the year are just, oh my gosh, the send-off that we give our kids is so beautiful and so sweet. And every year I'm like crying or just like tearing up. I love the video that we get to see all those kids talk about what, even at their young age, like 12, 13, 14-year-olds, they're reflecting on what they valued about Veritas, and it's beautiful. So I love that tradition.
What do you love about teaching?
For me, it is definitely, we call it an aha moment. It could be anything. Did I steal yours? You were like, I know, right? So for me, it's usually sort of an epiphany moment the kid has. Typically because I teach visual arts, that's where it happens, or makerspace. Sort of an engineering epiphany. But I just love it. Their faces like light up and you can see this look in their eyes like all of a sudden there's a little door in their brain that just opened. And they're like, I can walk through that door. I understand something new. And I just love being a part of that. And it happens so often. And it just makes my day. I literally go home and tell my family about it. It's just the best. So that really makes teaching so worth it for me.
I feel like we all kind of fit in that. I'm on the same vein there of there are moments in the year and every student finds it eventually. Some find it while they're here, some move on and find this later, but it's when you find that passion moment, that aha moment, where a student engages with something new and they just fall in love with that. There's something so beautiful about watching, especially a young mind, just kind of connect the head and the heart and the soul with something. Like, for example, we're learning about Shakespeare and history, and also Gaelic, and you'll have kids try out poetry, right? Because that's what you do when you learn about Shakespeare. And you have a couple kids who come back and say, I've never written poetry before, but I really liked it. And you're like, I think there's something there, right? And you see kids who then write poetry in their free time, and then submit it to the school newspaper. Before you know it, poetry is their thing, and it's just beautiful to watch a young mind connect with something so tangible. It's really beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I'm going to build off that as well. I called it the oh moment. I often see it in grammar or math. If your kids take grammar with me, I guarantee they're going to love diagramming by the end of the year. Don't ask me why, but they do. In the sense of, oh, that describes that, and they get it. The other thing I really like about teaching, sounds really corny, but I love that I get to kind of integrate with you guys on this journey. I take it really seriously, as all the teachers do. We get to be a part of your kids' lives. I love 4th grade. I think Noelle might not share that love. She has other grades she loves. But I love 4th grade because, no, they're just stickers for her there. But I love 4th grade because...
Not this particular 4th
No,
grade.
this 4th
grade
is
general.
It's me. I have a community. Let me just say, I love 4th grade because they're starting to think deeply. And all of a sudden they're grappling with, oh, Mrs. Fisher, that's really bad. Or, oh, I get it. And that's so exciting for me. And they don't have the high school attitude yet. So it's usually at the end of the year where I get the eye rolling. I'm like, hey, you can go to 5th grade. So 4th grade is a sweet grade.
It's true.
I guess there are two reasons why. One is I often think we're not professional teachers, we are professional learners. Being a teacher keeps me as humble, and goodness knows I need to be reminded of this every day. To work with people who come to a place and put in hours and hours in this building and outside of it, I'm just reminded of the spirit, the commitment that people bring to this endeavor. And the second thing is, why are we doing that? The second reason to teach, I get to meet amazing young people. I mean, your kids. And every day and every year it's different. Like, you think, oh, I know that, or I know this or that. Like, every year is different. And you learn so many things about yourself and about people, and you just see them grow, and you know a little bit selfishly that you are growing also.
I echo so much of that. So I'm going to ask you each a specific question. So I'm going to pick on Mr. Milton first. So why do you love to teach history to middle schoolers?
Well, yeah, I'm a history nerd, but I'm gonna approach this question in kind of two different ways. The why I love history, and then the why I love teaching it to middle school students of all people on God's green earth. And so the history is almost genetic, like the love for it. My grandfather was a history professor. My father is a history professor. Both my older brothers were history teachers at one point. One of them here. So it's in the genes, part of it. But also another part of it is that at a very young age, And in 6th and 7th grade, my teacher unlocked that love for me, like that love of history, unlocked that inside of me, and it's just never gone away. It's just that everyone has that little flame of something that just has never gone away. And so when I graduated college, I was like, what do I want to do? Well, I really like history, and I can talk if people let me, so I guess I'll teach. Now, why do I teach middle schoolers? First of all, I just have a passion for young people, but I discovered that after I started teaching. I think I discovered that I really do have a passion for young people. But middle schoolers especially have what I call the Goldilocks zone of learning. When you are young, especially for history, when you're young, history is full of such dark moments that it's hard to address a lot of history with younger minds. And you rightfully skip over a lot of things or sugarcoat things. Again, as you should with some things. And then when you get older, though, your experiences and the traumas of history and of the world, they really do. They can get you to kind of have a permanent frown. In middle school, they hit the just right note of, hey, you are bright enough to mess with complex stuff and to understand systems and problems and issues that you in the future will have to grapple with. But you also have the mind and the energy to approach that issue and say, I'm not scared of that. I want to fix that. I want to solve that. I want to be a part of a better world. And that makes me want to cry because it's so beautiful to watch minds interact with that. It just shows how brilliant some of these people are. So that's why I love teaching history to middle school, all people.
I wish I could tell you so much more about these amazing teachers, but I'm watching the clock. So Mrs. Fisher, who's been with us for 13 years, what do you think is the value of Veritas education?
So recently, people have been asking me if I'm going to retire soon, and that makes me nervous. I'm like, well, do I look old enough to retire? You know, I'm all worried, and maybe I just look tired enough to retire. The answer is no, I'm not retiring soon. And one of the biggest reasons is because I ask myself, if I retire, how am I going to have an impact on kids? And that's what I feel like the Lord has called me to do right now. You know, for the last several years, Massachusetts has been ranked #1 in education in the country. So of course it made me curious, how are we in Middlesex and Norfolk County doing? So I looked it up. Sure enough, Middlesex and Norfolk County are the #1 and #2 counties in Massachusetts educationally. Those are our counties. And I thought a lot about that, and I just thought, why would you guys put your kids here? You literally have the best schools at your back door, and yet you chose to put your kids here. And I think it's for the same reason that I'm here. Every morning when we do devotions, we've been looking at heroes of the faith, and I'll say to the kids, what can God do with one man or one woman who says yes to him? I'll tell you what he can do. He can do Harriet Tubman. He can do Elizabeth Elliot. He can do George Washington Carver. He can do Bill Bright. He can do Corrie ten Boom. He can do whatever he wants with one person who says, yes, I will do what you call me to do. And you guys, that's what I see as the value of Veritas. I'm here, and I would imagine from all my conversations with my coworkers, they're here for the same reason. They want to provide an excellent education for your kids, but more than anything, we want to see your kids be those world changers or those leaders, or maybe just a humble man or woman making a difference in their community. But more than anything, I want to see your kids walk with Christ desperately with everything. That's why I'm still here. That's why I'm putting the retinol on the eyes, keeping them open, because I want to make a difference in kids' lives. And that's what I would say is the Veritas value.
Well, so many schools are cutting the arts, and Veritas has kept expanding them. So what value do you see in that approach?
Right. So we have expanded the arts, and when I say arts, I'm including music and drama and poetry and newspaper and all kinds of amazing things. We are expanding the arts, and we've continued to do that. I feel like other schools are dropping them because they think they're not preparing kids for a career necessarily, and they don't want them to, somehow not have that time in school being prepared. But I really believe that, God created us, He's creative, and kids are given those gifts. And we all know, we've all gotten spiritual gifts, and many of us have done surveys on it, so maybe we're exhortation or humility or whatever. But creativity is one of those, and kids have a chance to grow in that gift. And I feel like for us, we're not trying to send a bunch of kids to become painters or actors or singers or violin players, although all of those things are great, and I hope lots of your kids are doing those things and enjoying them. But really what we want to do is create kids that have a changeable, like their mindset is one of being change makers, right? They're accustomed to flexible thinking, they're accustomed to creative thought. Because God is a change maker, and He didn't make us to just sit there and go, whatever. He made us to say, that's unjust, that needs to be fixed, this is hurting, I can change that. And so when we just teach to the test and kids just learn the right or wrong answer, they're not learning that flexible area of thought. And I really believe that for kids in the future, that flexibility is the most important thing that we can be teaching them. So something like makerspace or art or, and thank God, history and other things are giving kids that chance to practice those gifts and practice those skills and grow in them. So they may be a beautiful painter someday or an amazing musician, but they also may be making medical devices or dealing in the world of finance to change the world to be a better place because they too have the gift of being a change maker. The second part is that we want to partner with parents. So we know, because we're parents, not all of us, but many of us are, and we live in this area, it's expensive and it's hard and a lot of us work hard. I also know every parent I've ever met loves their kids and wants the best for their kids. That is just 100%, and I want to partner with that. So I just really believe that for us, we have figured out that for parents to have to go to work, leave work, get to the golf lesson, and also go to violin, and then get home and do homework and cook a healthy dinner, and then do all those dishes and get that kid to bed, but read a good story, and also, talk about the Bible. That is a lot to fit in every single day. So for us, when we have expanded our enrichment programs, including, our summer programs, anything that we can do to partner with parents that make that job a little bit easier and still give those kids great opportunities to have a private music lesson or be on an athletic team or to create paintings or any of these things. This is just a great opportunity for you as a family to gain back some of that family time and a great opportunity for those kids to be enriched, to actually get to do the art, the music, the drama, the newspaper that they want to do. And we really want parents to feel a little bit of ease and get a nice dinner on the table and spend some time together when they get home.
Yes, right. For that one at the end, but what do you most hope, Mr. Dancer, that your students take away from your classes?
So I get 8th graders who are, as some of you may know, are looking at private high schools and public high schools and wondering, not do I get an A in this class, but just how high an A do I need? And I can't tell you how many times I've told them it doesn't matter. And most of the time they don't hear that. It's not my goal for what I hope they get out of the class. I taught for years at university, engineering and various things. And I got to a point where I thought, I'm seeing kids where when they're already somewhat developed, they have an idea about what they're interested in professionally. Maybe not for sure, but they've got some good ideas. And they've had a lot of training. And I thought, I got really interested in STEM, philosophy of STEM, which says this, that our traditional classrooms often don't serve our kids well because we have sort of this predetermined way of dishing out knowledge and assessing how well our kids interact with that knowledge or prove that they know something. And I thought, I want to get involved with, I had done some work with summer camps and things, and thought, 9th, 10th grade, or maybe 8th grade, 7th grade would be a good possibilities for me to reach kids who don't know yet what they want to do in college, and maybe they're still figuring out, academically or artfully, where their heart is at. So what do I hope that they walk out of a room for me is not that they need to know something about science or makerspace, really. I'll give you two stories real quick. 6th grade girl in makerspace, we're building these mechanical devices out of cardboard. She was struggling for a while with some cams and gears and axles, getting something to work. This wasn't working for a couple of weeks, and she was getting frustrated, I could tell. I sat down with her for a few minutes, and we looked at it and said, look, Lily, let's get some scissors, X-Acto. We're gonna make some trims here, and I want you to test this thing for me. And she starts making some changes to some cams, and things start turning and working. It's kind of like that aha moment. But what was important for me was that the next week, she didn't say anything to me. She immediately got the tools, she got her stuff, and she started tweaking, testing, and doing it all over again. One last story, 8th grade boy, struggling to read a textbook to explain some very high concept science about the structure of atoms and the interaction of electrons and protons and neutrons. I was trying to figure out how do I get this poor kid to give me something on a quiz or a test that shows that he knows it. And as I was struggling with this, one day I walk in, just by coincidence, to the classroom, and he's in there with another student. And the other student said, Lionel, what in the world's the deal with electrons and electron orbitals? Lionel grabs a dry erase marker and walks up to the whiteboard and diagrams this thing beautifully. And in the process of diagramming it, explains exactly how they work in a way that he'd never done for me on a quiz. This is what I need to recognize in students. This is the challenge for me. And what I want them to walk out of here is whatever it is they do, I need them to know that they have value and that they're confident in that value. So if they need to crack open the hood of the car, I know Lily's going to get in there and get greasy because she knows where the gears are, what she's got to do. Or I know that Lyle is just going to punt the textbook. Because there are times when we just, as humans, don't write well enough. And he's going to say, I'm going to get up in front of my peers. I'm going to grab the dry erase marker. And we're going to diagram this thing and figure it out. And they got to know that God put them here to do that. And sometimes the world is saying, well, you're not really here, or you're not worth it, or you're not doing it. No, that's not true. You have value. And we walk out of here knowing there's a place for you, and you need to be confident in the things that you can contribute in this world while you're here.